So one day I was at a restaurant with some friends, and our waitress's name was Love, and we offered to pray for Love, and she allowed us to, and then she came back, and I just asked her a simple question. I said, Love, has anyone ever shared the gospel with you before? And she said, no. I said, could I show you a simple way? It'll only take a minute. She said, sure. So I said, Love, if you turn on the television or look at your Facebook feed, it's clear that we live in a broken world, right? She said, yeah. I said, there's a lot of death, a lot of disease, a lot of suffering, but we also see traces of beauty, right? Like the beauty of a sunset or the laugh of a child, and she agreed, she had kids. And I said, but God's world, as it was created, was not broken. It was perfect. There was no death or disease or suffering or fighting. But starting with the very first people, we as humans chose to leave God's design and go our own way. And the Bible calls that sin. Sin is what has led us into brokenness and sin in our life and our world. And we don't like to be in this brokenness. We try to get out. So in some cases, people try to get out by climbing the ladder of success. And others think, man, if I could just be religious and just go to church or be a good person, that'll get me out. And others try to drown it out with drugs and alcohol or even attempts at suicide. And some try to immerse themselves in relationships. There's a lot of ways to try to escape this brokenness, but none of them allow us to escape. They just snap us back like a bungee cord into greater brokenness. But God loved us so much, He did not want us to stay in brokenness. And so He did for us what we could not do for ourselves and provided the only way out through His Son, Jesus. You see, Jesus came down into our world and allowed Himself to be killed on a cross. And 3 days later, He rose from the dead, defeating sin, defeating death. And He simply told us that if we would be willing to turn from our way and surrender to Jesus as the king or the boss of our lives, that we would then be forgiven and could be restored back into this relationship with God. Now I asked Love, does this make sense? And she said, yes, it does. I said, there's two types of people in this world. There's those who are still in brokenness and those who through Jesus are back in God's design. Which one are you? And she said, man, I'm in brokenness. I said, well, where do you want to be? And she said, I want to be back in God's design. I said, okay, great. Well, when I chose to make this decision to follow Jesus, it just requires believing this. But I said a prayer to Him very similar to this picture. I said, God, I'm very sorry for my sin that I have left your design, and I don't like being in brokenness. I want to turn from my way and believe that you came and died on the cross and rose from the dead for my sin. And I want to make you my king so I can be forgiven and restored back into your design. Is that a prayer you'd like to pray? And she said, I would. So Love, right there with my friends, prayed to receive Jesus. And that's how you can share the gospel using the 3 circles tool.